The DIFC offers an incredibly favorable business environment to firms based within its perimeter. This includes an independent regulator, an ad hoc judicial system, and no restrictions on the repatriation of capital. But without the financial centers in the region and across the world raising their game, will the DIFC retain its competitive advantage? And what about potential tensions between the onshore and offshore parts of Dubai? I will ask Arshad Ghafur, the President for Middle East and North Africa at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Mr. Ghafur highlights the factors that facilitate international trade and banking in the DIFC before discussing the onshore-offshore matter and sharing his views on what Dubai needs to focus on to retain its lead.
I think a lot of people, a lot of international banks such as ourselves, have chosen to base themselves within the DIFC to act as a springboard into North Africa, some sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and some even Turkey. So while our remit here is just Middle East and North Africa, there are others that cover the entire African continent from Dubai. And I think it's a combination of logistics, transport, and the people that they have on the ground here that actually facilitates that.
But also of the distinctive and independent regulator that the DIFC enjoys, as well as an independent judicial system. How are they playing in the DIFC's favor?
It's absolutely critical. I think as the DIFC was created, there was certainly a plan, and the plan was to have world-class infrastructure, a very robust legal and regulatory environment, and basically world-class governance, corporate governance. And the DIFC is very particular about that. So they have their own independent court system here. It is quite active, as others have found out. And I think it's very difficult for anyone to argue that the quality of the framework that's been put in place here is any different to anywhere else in the world.
So centers of this nature, which are offshore, obviously are conducive to international business. Although sometimes there may be a tension, some observers would say, in the connection to the onshore parts of the economy. What is your view?
Look, they're completely, from my perspective, they're quite different. If there are certain activities that people need to do onshore, then they're governed by the central bank and they have to be based onshore. The DIFC's remit was not for people to come here and establish an operation to conduct onshore activity. That was, that wasn't the purpose here. And I think that in terms of onshore banking, retail and corporate banking are quite important. And the UAE Central Bank, to its credit, manages some of the largest banks in the region. And again, it is a robust regulatory framework there. I think for the DIFC was always, again, in line with Dubai itself, the Emirate of Dubai. The DIFC was always meant to facilitate, I believe, international trade and banking. And it does that extremely well. So if you look at a lot of the international financials that are based here, it is basically a regional headquarters to access all of the markets that we cover from Dubai. If you look at, away from financials, if you look at some of the largest corporates in the world, they also choose to base themselves in Dubai for the same reasons that we do, which is that the infrastructure, the combination of the infrastructure, the security, and the talent that you can hire here is very difficult for anyone else to replicate within close proximity.
So you're obviously satisfied with the level of service provided by the DIFC, but what would you like to see happening next? What is the next phase of development?
I think the key for the DIFC, they've clearly benefited from the first mover advantage. There's no question on that. I think the key going forward is really how do you become even more relevant to the three continents or subcontinents that you're very close to, right? And I think maintaining competitiveness is extremely important. So you have to stay competitive, there's no question. And that, that's in a number of ways, right? It's not just zero tax, it's not just the ability to repatriate capital. It's also a question of, are the operations cost effective? Is the cost that we're paying for technology Is that in line with international standards? All of these things become relevant because ultimately, why do people choose to base themselves in a certain place? The regulatory environment is extremely important, corporate governance is extremely important, but profitability is also important, right? So that's one of the metrics you have to look at. We are also very concerned with security, and Dubai and the UAE offer us a level of security which, would be quite challenging in other jurisdictions if you look at the overall regional map that we have to cover. I think that it is important that world-class infrastructure remains cutting edge. There's no question, and as technology continues to evolve, the bulk of the action or the activity so far is in the tech space, and it's important for Dubai to track that as well. Ease of business, ease of operating. It's also about a lot of our talent here. They have families, so that's why it's very important for a financial center to coexist with the community around it, and that's why, as I said earlier, Dubai and the DIFC, their futures are, I would say, very closely intertwined and interlinked.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for your comments, Arshad.
Thank you.